Hey guys, welcome back to Middle Ground. I'm Evan, and this is our illustrious editor, Brandon.
Hi. Really quick before we jump into the video, we released another video on our second channel, Jubilee, which is a channel that we created for you guys to get to know us, the Jubilee team, better. This is a video pretty much about the origin story of Jubilee Media, and it was filmed 3 years ago, back when we were freaking out that we received 500,000 subscribers. So we've definitely come a long way, and you should definitely check it out.
Yep, and a big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this episode. Stick around after the episode to learn how you can get 2 months of Skillshare Premium for free and hear quickly about one of my favorite classes. But first, here's the episode.
As I'm looking up, I just see these 3 lights in like a triangular formation. It just moves without, any sound or anything. Then it stops for 10 seconds or so, and then just raises up into the clouds and then just disappears.
Oh my gosh. They're all going against the wind. Look at that thing, dude. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. Look at that thing.
What is your opinion about aliens?
They're real.
We have an entire galaxy just of so many different planets and stars.
The odds of us being alone in the universe are almost non-existent.
Do you think humans have made contact with aliens already?
I don't think the evidence shows that.
I've had my own experience.
When you tell this experience to people, do they typically believe you?
Yeah, for the most part.
I have encountered aliens. It's not like in person, like they're hanging out, like they're not dense like we are.
We're talking about minimum of thousands, if not millions or billions of light years away. So the odds that they have visited us is pretty astronomical that they probably didn't and may not visit us for millions of years.
I think it's pretty exciting, unless you're one of those people that's getting visited at 3 in the morning alone in your bedroom and getting walked out to some craft for sexual experimentation. My name's Greg Carlwood. I host a podcast called Higher Side Chats in the conspiracy paranormal space and been doing it for 10 years, so I've heard a lot of interesting stories.
I'm Luke Nias. I'm an IT specialist, and I've also had my own experience, which is kind of crazy, but yeah.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I have a blog called starseedhotspot.com. I'm someone who would identify as a starseed and have had a lot of different spiritual and paranormal experiences.
Hi, my name's Lynette. I'm an actress, and I'm spiritually aware of myself, and I believe that, aliens are real.
I'm Dominic Andre. I am actually a mental health therapist and an influencer, but I've been in love with science since I was a kid, published by NASA, and I'm an amateur astronomer.
Spencer Marks, the author of the sci-fi book Living History, and also a senior investigator with the Center for Inquiry Investigations Group. We investigate claims of the paranormal.
All right. Can I get my folks who feel like they have made personal contact with aliens on the left, and then my people who have not on the right? The first prompt is, I've seen a UFO.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, welcome.
Hello.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen one. It was about 10 years ago, just right before I graduated high school, and as I'm looking up, I just see these 3 lights in like a triangular formation. There was no body to it, just the 3 lights, and they were like flickering, almost like on fire or something like that. I look at my buddy and I say, are you seeing this? And he sees it, and yeah, it just moves without any sound or anything, just quiet for about a minute. Then it stops for 10 seconds or so, and then just raises up into the clouds and then just disappears. Well, this is 10 years ago, so it's like drones weren't really a big thing. I've never seen a plane that could hover, or at least hover and then not make a bunch of noise. So it's something I can't explain, honestly.
So for me, as someone who is a clairvoyant, I'll see like dimensional like overlapping of things, especially going through what's called a Kundalini awakening, which was really intense, and I had a lot of different types of contact with like aliens through like astral projection as well. Like I've just like left my body, seen my body like laying there, and went and visited other dimensions, been on spacecrafts and like seen different spacecrafts. These are things that like I can't explain, and they weren't dreams.
For me, as an amateur astronomer, I do see UFOs, but to clarify that, UFO stands for unidentified flying object. So for me, yes, I do see things that I don't know what they are, but my immediate conclusion isn't aliens or intelligent life. My immediate conclusion is, what can I scientifically understand? You know, we thought thunder was gods, and now we would easily explain it to not being gods. People will get confused. They assimilate, or they, you know, make UFO and aliens, you know, one, and I'm like, that's not the same thing.
That's a good point.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
It would be disingenuous to say I've ever seen one firsthand, but because of what I do, I've had plumbers come to the house. You're like, oh, what do you do? I host a conspiracy podcast. Well, let me tell you something. You know, my uncle is a pilot, and he would never tell his superiors this, but he's seen this and this. And even the U.S. Navy has released footage of UFOs and said, yeah, these crafts are real, and we don't know what they are. Just a couple of years ago, it was in the New York Times.
Certainly, I've looked up and said, oh, I don't know what that is, but I never once assumed that to be an alien spacecraft. I actually am also a private pilot, so I know how to identify aircraft visually from the lighting pattern. I'm also an amateur astronomer, and you know, I looked up 1,000 times through a telescope, and you can see like some people might think that object moved so fast, it was bright, and you know, was that a UFO? Well, I know it's a satellite, so I'm not worried about those things.
There's a lot of people who say, yeah, I've seen aliens, I've seen UFOs. It's interesting that the aliens have headlights.
Yeah. You don't want to crash in the ground.
I think that we don't even need those now. I mean, you know, like we can use the technology. So it's interesting that we always use like human-like objects to explain aliens.
There isn't like a catch-all, you know what I mean? Because it's like you said, oh, they have headlights. Well, maybe they have lights, but maybe it's not so they can see. There could be a different purpose for it, you know what I mean? I'm not one to be a fibber, you know? It's like, if I believe in something, I'm not afraid to say it, you know, even if people might think I'm crazy or whatever, you know, because it's just something that's so weird and different that, I mean, why would you make that up?
Aliens live among us today.
This galaxy, this universe is so vast and wide. To believe that they aren't here now is kind of dumb, in my opinion.
Some kind of multi-dimensional thing. I mean, someone's flying all those crafts that people see out there.
Right.
I've never seen any that I know of, but I have interviewed a lot of researchers who have heard from people within the government, within the Department of Defense, that have said that they are pretty confident that that's a reality, and that the black budget goes to trying to keep some kind of tabs on this activity.
I have read some stuff about people being abducted into government facilities, Area 51, things like that. If we're talking about like the traditional sense of like an alien, they work with our government, they keep this matrix operating, you know? And as someone who identifies as a starseed, I mean, like technically I'm an alien that incarnated here.
I guess I interpret it as living among us. I think of like, you know, the reptilians where, you know, they're in disguise and they're assimilating into our society, where you could be an alien and you're just not saying it. You know what I mean?
I really am.
I don't know if you see them in the line at Starbucks, yeah. But I do think for there to be physical experiences, they're sharing the planet with us.
I just find the notion pretty far-fetched. I mean, why the secrecy? If they want to learn from us, if we want to learn about them, why wouldn't they just step forward and say, here we are?
I think we all obviously believe aliens do exist here, or statistically, which is fine, but to say that they traveled here is another thing, because like with the Roswell crash, very, very unlikely to see someone be able to do that 10,000 years, cross the entire universe, and then crash immediately when we get here.
Well, plus you look at the debris. I mean, they have pictures of the debris. It's like literally balsa wood and, mylars.
Pictures they showed you of the
Well,
debris.
but the point is, there's not enough physical. If you're in a spaceship, it's not going to be 3 pounds of debris.
I've read a lot of books about the chain of custody of that material. There's thousands of people who've had experiences. There's dozens and dozens of crash stories that are beyond Roswell.
Do you think that the person writing the book has an incentive financially to write a book?
Yes, but is a doctor less good because he makes money being a doctor? Aliens is kind of a loaded term. I think of non-human intelligences, which could be things people experience on psychedelics. I woke up one day a complete material atheist. Some friends convinced me to try Salvia divinorum, and then it was kind of like an instantaneous out-of-body experience. And then that felt entirely natural. It felt more normal than waking life. And then there was a male and female entity of some kind, and they spoke to me. They're like, wow, we're surprised you're here. I'm like, I'm surprised I'm here. And one was more cynical about the fact that I wouldn't be there long, and the other one was just more excited about being there at all. And the one was like, well, why are you even talking to this guy? He's going to be gone. He's going to be gone in just a few minutes. And the other one was like, but he's here now. And I'm convinced there's intelligences out there that are non-human that we can interact with, but that kind of changed my life, actually.
I think people on the other side are misinformed.
I think the data for UFOs and non-human intelligence is pretty strong. I think you have to really dive into it because it's not being presented on the news. But when you look at it, there's no shortage of really credible sources that have seen some pretty incredible things. Paul Hellyer is the ex-defense minister of Canada, and he says, hey, there's these crafts flying over and they're shooting our nuclear facilities with some kind of beam and disabling them. That's a fairly credible source.
Right, well, look, anecdotal evidence is some evidence, but it's not strong evidence. As far as physical evidence, that's where we fall short.
I would disagree with that. Have you ever tried a psychedelic compound?
I have not.
Hey, we can figure this out pretty quick. Then you do it, and then you tell me it wasn't real.
Well, so you're saying that something you take is going to create an external difference? We can't look at that as evidence any more than we can, I dreamt something.
It widens perceptions of consciousness?
But that's from your brain.
But that's like a hallucination. That's not really expanding consciousness. Like you're talking about like hallucinating.
Well, what's the difference?
So I think science is also based on perception. So you're talking about the brain and the brain being powerful. But so is our heart center, which science can prove has its own energy field around it. And it's much stronger than our brain. So the point that I want to make is like science is based on perception. It's a bunch of people perceiving studies a certain way, right? But so is spirituality.
The difference between science is not that 5 different scientists perceive something differently or in the same way. They look at evidence, and if that evidence guides them and points them toward a particular direction and is repeatable and it's falsifiable, we tend to say, well, that's what reality tends to be or seems to be.
But that's reality based on your perception.
No, it's not a perception.
It is. Everything is perception.
Science is good at things.
We're probably misinformed about a lot of stuff, but for the other side to say you guys are misinformed, I think is just as ridiculous, because I think
that's like what I meant, honestly, is like we all have our own truth, and that's relative to you, and it's valid regardless.
And I think that can be true for people, and I think it's hard because I could show you an expert, it's meaningless to you, but you could show me your expert, and this is the right one. And so it's interesting because I work with a lot of Muslims. They're saying, I've spoken to my God. Then a Christian says, the Muslim God is wrong, but I've spoken to my God. And a Hindu says, I've actually recognized and remembered my past life, and I can name it down to a T. And so if we get to that point, I think everyone would then just be right, and we would know there would be no actual unifying reality. But the scientific community is saying we want to create a unified reality between each other so we can progress in our own way. And that's why science, we would never say there aren't aliens or are aliens. You're saying aliens, there was a crash. We would say there could be, but we don't know. And right now it's leaning this way. So misinformation is different. It's more just about kind of like hard-headedness on that.
It's fair.
I think it's more close-mindedness to say, yours whole kind of organization is not to be malicious in debunking things, but that is your goal, is to disprove something.
No, that's not at all. It's absolutely not true.
Well,
our organization looks at evidence for things, and we ask others. They have a claim of a paranormal activity. Great, show it to us. Show us the evidence. We don't do anything to debunk them. We simply.
I feel like that's really limiting, though.
No,
that's the thing.
But the point is,
with
that's not limiting.
misinformation, I just feel like it's just
No,
limiting instead of misinforming.
Well, the purpose is
to find the truth.
To find the truth. And
What do you say to the U.S. Navy, who has come out and said there are unidentified flying crafts that defy physics? We don't know what they are. Is that a credible source?
We don't know
to you?
our physics.
Yeah, but the point
We're
is
learning our physics.
Well, I agree with that. I think that's why there's a lot of
if-
suppression in this area, because it unlocks hidden
But if the
technologies.
U.S. Navy is saying we don't know what it is, that's the point.
There's so many tapes that you see from like the Air Force where
Right.
you see these flying objects.
I don't
But that's
disagree.
the same thing of saying, 5,000 years ago, that's thunder. You guys saw that thunder. It's God. We're just saying we don't know, and to jump to
But
conclusions.
jumping
also
to
discounting-
conclusion
Let's
is
reset.
kind of far-fetched.
We've kind of exploded, but this was good.
You
That's the
asked
good
for
stuff.
this.
It's your fault. Is this the content you want?
I am completely on the side of science and evidence. I investigate claims of the paranormal with a group called the Center for Inquiry Investigations Group, and we have not found any evidence whatsoever of any sort of paranormal activity or aliens or any of that sort of thing, and we've looked.
And you've been on the show before, right?
I have been on the show before, yes, in the Flat Earth episode.
Nice. What was that experience like?
It was a great experience. My only comment was that we presented a lot of science and all of that was edited out. We sort of ended up with interesting sound bites, but not so much of the science.
Well, I'm sorry for that. The Area 51 raid was a bad idea.
If you try to storm military facilities, you're going to have a bad time.
Exactly.
If they can wipe people's memories that have been working there for 20 years like that, then what could they do to people that are trying to storm a government facility?
Mow them down. I mean, that's literally it. I mean, I know it. I think it started as just like a kind of a joke Facebook group or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, that's kind of funny, but the fact that there is kind of a somewhat of a consensus where, at least with skeptics, that people who do believe in aliens are somewhat crazy or weird, you know what I mean? Like something's a little off with them.
Didn't
so
help.
it was bad not only just for people in general, but also believers in UFOs and aliens in general.
I definitely don't believe it was necessarily a bad idea. I feel like it put pressure on the government to be like, hey, there are a lot of people who are curious about what you're doing. And if you have a whole facility of just like secrets, you can't help but explore that curiosity and see for yourself.
And I definitely agree with that, but it wasn't like we had a group of, scientists and well-to-do people that would be, I guess, more respected. It was just a bunch of kids making jokes about clapping alien cheeks. You know what I mean? It's just like there was no seriousness behind it.
It was like the way it was constructed.
Yeah.
I feel like religion or science can be kind of limited and boxed. I have a Catholic background, so in my family, aliens aren't real. It's just human beings. So growing up in that kind of environment, I should have a different opinion from what I have now.
I believe humans were created by a higher power.
You said humans, right? Okay. Just clarifying. I grew up as a Catholic, and to now, I've transitioned to being a Christian and all of that. So I do believe in God. I do believe that He created us, and I also believe He created everything else, the planet, nature, the galaxy, and beyond.
If the question was, were we made by aliens, I might not have stepped forward, but higher power is a wider umbrella. We're clearly very different from every other thing on this planet.
Right.
And I think there was some intervention at some point that might have facilitated that. Terence McKenna thought it was mushrooms, that we did psychedelic mushrooms, and that facilitated an evolution of consciousness. And mushroom spores can survive in space too, so maybe they are the aliens that helped us get to where we are right now.
So we are for sure an evolutionary accident. I mean, we don't know why we developed these big brains, but we did. I mean, we've only been around kind of a couple 100,000 years.
Yeah, actually kind of piggyback off of that, where, you know, as animals, because that's basically what we are, we're just really smart animals, you know? It's just we took a path of how we evolved to where we are today, you know? And like you said with the mushrooms possibly being part, that would be part of the evolution of what we are.
It does change brain chemistry, psilocybin mushrooms?
It does, but that would be more toward a Lamarckian evolution as opposed to a Darwinian evolution, because Lamarck thought that if you just did pressure, if you did forces, then that would change different generations. And we're pretty sure that doesn't happen. I mean, many generations of Jews have been circumcising their babies, and yet every baby has been born with a foreskin after that. So it's sort of not something you can force, apparently.
But when we talked about higher power, I don't know you well enough, we just met, but I guarantee he wouldn't be past saying, yes, aliens could have made us.
Oh,
you know, there could be civilizations that are tens of thousands of years ahead of us. They could have came in here and altered things. That is 100% a possibility. But possibility and probability are two different things, and I think that's really important, because I can sit here all day and tell you, yes, we could all be in a simulation. That is, and statistically possible, but statistically possible is not how we all operate our lives. We use statistics in everyday life, and I think that's really important to not let it go when it comes to everything else, when it comes to spiritual issues or evolution, and just say, although I operate my entire life off statistics, I'm not going to do it here.
I think there is some science that like indicates like life on other planets, or like, you know, going back to like ancient civilizations, there is proof that like they believed in aliens. But for me personally, I would say it's very spiritual based.
My views on this topic are an important part of my identity.
It wouldn't make sense for me to not step forward considering the fact that I identify as a starseed. So it's just something that you awaken to your own divinity, and it's very personal to you. And I think we're all on different paths, and everyone's valid in their own way, but...
Absolutely. And when you have an experience with it, it's verified, it's validated. But
Agreed,
until
100%.
you do, it's not there.
It fascinates me, you know. I've watched many documentaries, many specials and things like that regarding this topic, but it's not like I live and breathe it.
You know, I'm not going to dwell on it till it happens. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'd love to be the first guy to, you know, see the craft land, go up, introduce myself, you know, get some alien technology, take my photos with my iPhone up close, you know, selfies. I mean, I would love to do that.
When you're ready.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Ayahuasca is a facilitator of contact made from 2 plants in the Amazon.
I've had a friend do it, and he basically said that from that he found Hinduism, and he knows to be sure that reincarnation is real, aliens aren't, it's all on Earth. So that's why it's interesting, because it's like, would you disagree with his statement that there are no other aliens, it's just Hinduism, and why would his trip be different than yours and non?
Well, I just consider the umbrella of aliens to be more like non-human intelligences, whether it's multidimensional, something people called spirits or angels or aliens. It doesn't seem like his experience necessarily would devalue that. He might have a different box or label.
I normally tell everyone I don't have beliefs, it's all based off statistics. I'm not here to say 100% there are aliens, just statistically there are. So I'm here to always just make the boundary between people who say 100% there are aliens and the people who say 100% there aren't aliens. And I don't think either of those are correct, but we have to look at it as a number situation, and I think that's very important, because we can't be using our emotion or our religion to determine whether there are aliens or not.
To me, it unlocked an entire dimension of reality that I was denying beforehand, you know, a spiritual dimension of consciousness. Once you take these compounds, you can experience things beyond yourself that science is going to have a tough time with, because science is in this box of the material world.
There's so many things in this world that we don't have any information on. So almost kind of narcissistic in effect to say we're the only intelligent beings that live in this entire known universe. So yeah, no, I think believe what you want, but aliens are real.
I definitely agree with what you were saying. There are just too many things in this world to just have one single, this is it, this is the truth idea.
Before my spiritual awakening, I was just like you guys, 100%, and I was actually very atheist. Someone like me who went through a spiritual awakening, and someone who is a starseed and just being like, okay, who am I? I'm not from here. I could speak this other language. Like I can do these things that like don't make any sense. And having the kind of experiences that I've had, it's something that science can't explain to me. And so I feel like just operating from a science base is kind of limiting yourself.
Yeah, and I think the misconception, a lot of people think that science is nothing more than some weird collection of facts and figures. It's not that at all. It's a methodology by which you explore the world, explore the universe. But to give you an idea of how vast the universe is, you could take the smallest grain of dust, paint it blue, go out to the middle of the Pacific Ocean, throw it in there, and a year later tell your friend, go find that grain of dust. That would be much easier to find than to find the Earth in this universe if you didn't know where to look for the Earth. I mean, we are so small and insignificant compared to a grain of dust in the Pacific Ocean.
I think we all kind of agree aliens probably do exist. There's a great chance. For me, 99.99% chance here. It's just a fine line when we talk about psychedelics or inner, realities, because I think then we have to credit people with schizophrenia, we have to credit people with all types of disorders to then not downplay what they believe and what they see. And they see their mother walking in front of them, and they see the ants that actually evolve into humans in front of them. And so I think it's hard to do that, because I think if we go down that realm or that realm, then we can't discredit them either. Not to say we can't, but just it would put us down that realm where we have to credit all of them. And so it's really important that for me is, yes, we can go down that road, but I think that road didn't lead us to cars, hospitals, different things like that.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
That was good. Yeah.
It's great meeting all of you.
You too.
Wonderful.
Same.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a trip. Have you ever been in contact with an alien?
I have not. I am pretty sure I believe in aliens.
Elon Musk is an alien.
Oh, yeah. That was a prompt that we initially were going to have in the video, and we ended up not asking it for time.
I wish we had included that one. I haven't met him though, so I still have not contacted an alien. A big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this episode. For those of you who don't know, Skillshare is an online learning community where creative and curious people can come together to try new things, gain new skills. A class that I really like is called Real Productivity: How to Build Habits That Last by author and fellow YouTuber Thomas Frank. So I like the class because the first thing he hits you with is the idea that perfect is the enemy of good. And that's something we talk a lot about at Jubilee. We all want to do great work. We all want to make something perfect. But if we really just focus on that end goal, it's really hard to start. So with that said, the first 1,000 subscribers who click on the link in the description below will get a 2-month free trial of Skillshare Premium. And as always,
stay safe.
And like, comment, and subscribe.
And like, comment, and subscribe.
Both of those things.
Yeah.
Peace out, Earthlings.
Bye.